it's Amy with the Hag Reads. I am here with my day 3 vlog with my progress for BookTube-A-Thon. It is 10:10 in the morning here in central Arizona. I finished my 3rd book, The Unseen World by Liz Moore, and I talked about it a little bit last night. And I thought that it could have been shorter. After finishing it, I kind of still feel the same way, and this is why. I'm going to kind of do this visual. Where this piece of paper is in the book, that's page 177. That part of the book is the backstory, and it is, I felt kind of tedious. I felt like it dragged on for much longer than it needed to, building up the base of the story. I thought it could have been more concise, but outside of that, I really enjoyed this book. It broke my heart a little bit at the end when I realized why it was narrated the way it was, but and with the father's story when it all finally came out, it was sad, and the book is well written, and I would definitely recommend it for people who like contemporary. I wouldn't completely consider this literary fiction, but I think it's more in that direction than most fiction that I've read in quite a while. So it has literary fiction leanings, and it is definitely a contemporary story. Parts of it take place in the 30s and 40s. A lot of it takes place in the 80s, and some of it, the early bits of his life, some of it in the 70s. The focus is between a little vignettes from the 40s, 30s, and 40s, a little bit in the 70s, and then large chunks in the 80s, and then a little bit in the 2000s. I think most of the end of the book was 2009-ish. So, but overall I liked it, and I would definitely recommend it to people who like contemporary fiction and who have leanings towards literary fiction. It was an enjoyable story. Not a happy story, though, overall. Melancholy thoughts about what behaviors are socially acceptable, cultural mores, family dynamics, interpersonal interactions, and then a lot about computers and logic and that sort of thing. So definitely a good read. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. After that, I started on The Loch by Steve Alten, and this is one of my longest books. The Unseen World was 451 pages, and I read that, let's see, what did I say over here? I read that, started at 10 p.m. on the 24th, which was Monday evening, so Monday just before midnight, and I finished it at 4 a.m. today. So, and then I started The Loch just after 4 a.m. I have only read 2 chapters in it. I am up to about page 45, so only that far, like barely into the book. This one is just shy of 500 pages, I think, at 487 pages. Well, no, that's not right, because there's some kind of preview at the... So, not including the preview and advertisements, it's 470 pages. I think I may have read this before. I know I read Meg by him, and I don't think I gave it a very good review. Even though I liked the book, it was kind of a B-movie kind of premise for me. And it was at a time when I was doing little blurby reviews on Amazon, customer reviews. And a lot of people did not like my review. Apparently he has a pretty solid fan base. And it wasn't that I didn't like the book, it was just, it had a very B-movie feel to me. I haven't read it in a long time, and I guess there are now 3 books. I think there were only 2 when I originally read Meg. And so I may go back and read those and see if I have different feelings toward them now. I struggle a little bit with rating books between how much I enjoyed it and then thinking about it in its genre, thinking about it in the overall canon of just fiction. I mean, you have to think that a book like Meg is not going to be popular in 20 or 30 years. Like, it's not going to hold up to the test of time. It's probably still not going to be in print. So it's kind of like cheesy horror in the 80s. You can still find it, but a lot of those books are out of print, and, you know, to me, that type of literature isn't enjoyable, and I like it, but I know that it's not good fiction, and that it is not, you know, as no insult meant to the authors, they're not well written in terms of, you would never consider that literary fiction. But they're entertaining, and they're fun, and they're easy to read, and they pass the time, and the most important thing, I think, is the entertaining part. You read to be entertained, or you read to gain knowledge. You're reading for a specific reading, and if you're reading this kind of book, you're not necessarily reading for knowledge. You're reading to be entertained, to have fun with what you're reading, to see a different world than your own, to have an adventure that you might never have on your own. So I struggle with how to rate books that I enjoy, but that I know are not great fiction. And then for the last few hours, I read the first chapter, the first 2 chapters, the first 45 pages, maybe in about an hour to an hour and a half. And then after that, I switched over to Planetwalker, because I do want to finish this by tomorrow. So I am about 8 pages shy of chapter 12, which means I will, or of chapter 13, I think. Hold on. Am I still only? Yeah, chapter 13. So I was on chapter 6. I was starting chapter 6 when I picked it up. So that means I have read 6 chapters. And I am up to currently, I cannot read, those numbers are so tiny. 162. So I have about 8 pages to go till I hit chapter 13, and that was kind of where I was going to stop, because I am getting kind of tired. I, once again, up all night. Thank you, Insomnia. You are awesome. But, you know, it is what it is. So I at least have made use of that time. I got some writing done. I got quite a bit of writing, actually. I got some reading done. I did a little bit of knitting, so I am getting near the end of this skein. So it's about half the size it was when I was knitting on Monday, and that was half the size of the full skein. So maybe this is a fourth of the yarn left. You get down to about golf ball size, and you think, I'm so close to being done, and it just goes on forever. But I'll try and smooth this out a little bit. That is the first row, the first block of color. And the other blocks will be slightly larger than this. And maybe in the next video I'll show the palette. But I have knitted. I think it's half again, as large as it was on Monday. I didn't take as many knitting breaks because I'm also, I haven't watched any Flash, and I'm trying to catch up on my YouTube videos. I am, let me check here real quick. It's not going to let me do it right there because I have, never mind. I think I'm maybe 2/3 of the way through my list of subscriptions, and I actually did overnight unsubscribe from a couple of people. Not because they don't have valuable content, but because their reading interests are very far outside of mine. So no matter how entertaining the videos are, or what kind of knowledge they have to impart on the subject matter, I'm never going to read the books they're reading, and I have a limited amount of time in terms of, if I want to read, I can't spend all my time watching videos. I want to finish up a bunch of TV series coming up here, and then I subscribed temporarily. My son and I discussed it, And I signed up for 3 months of the CBS streaming because I had originally started watching from Read, Repeat. I don't think I'm saying her channel right, but she's a homeschooling channel, and I subscribed to her a while ago. She reads with intention a lot of nonfiction that I would like to read, and I love to hear her opinions on it. I don't have school-age children anymore, but I still love to listen to her talk about homeschooling her children and how they go about that and all the activities. I just really like her content, but she said one of her guilty pleasures was Survivor, and I didn't realize it was still on the air after all these years. And so I went to Amazon, and Amazon Prime had seasons 1 and then 3 through 12, and then a few of the later ones. There are 34 seasons of Survivor. I remember when it came out, and I didn't start watching until the 7th season, and I'm pretty sure that I was watching something and the season premiere aired after that, and the TV got left on for whatever reason. This would have been back when I was still married and had cable, and I got sucked into it, and so I started watching at season 7. I had never seen any of the seasons before. I watched the first season on Amazon Prime and realized that you couldn't watch the second season through the third season. You can watch the second or the third season, but you could pick it up, or maybe it was, no, it was you could watch seasons 1 and 3, but not 2 or 4 through 12. And then it had 12 and a section up into the 20s that you could watch on Prime for free. But I wanted to watch the whole thing because that's how I am. I'm obsessive like that. And since I had never seen the first 7, the first 6, I knew who won the first one because it was all over the place for a while. And then he was on, I think it was season 8, whichever one was the all-star season where they brought back people. And so I knew some of the winners from that because they had, I think, 3 or 4 people who had won on that season. So I talked with my son, and he agreed to let me do 3 months of the CBS streaming access, and they have all 34 seasons, all the way up through 34, which I'm not watching, even though I can watch it as kind of they come out. I just started with season 1, and I made it, I am maybe a third of the way through, or maybe close to a half. I'm not sure. I didn't bother to pull it up before I started rambling on here. But that's how far I've gotten. And I think I've had it for almost 2 months. So I binge watched quite a bit. But I was doing other things while I was doing it. I was working on art projects. I was knitting. I wrote a lot of journaling stuff and working in my book of days. Not stuff that I can't write fiction and watch TV at the same time. That doesn't work for me. But other things, correspondence and blog posts and stuff where I can kind of take my attention between both. But any intensive writing, essays or stuff like that, I can't even have music with lyrics playing because I find it distracting. So I want to finish all of the seasons before my time runs out, or otherwise I'm going to have to beg for $6 more to watch it for another month. Not that I don't think we would come to an agreement about it, but we're trying to save money to move when we want to move to the Oregon area, so everything that we get that's an additional expense takes away money towards our savings for the move. So that's why it's a negotiation. Not that I'm not allowed to spend money or he's not allowed to spend money. It's that we're trying to accomplish something very specific. So my latest guilty pleasure is binge watching all of the previous seasons of Survivor. And I have not had TV for so long that I didn't even know it was still on the air. So color me pleasantly surprised. It's one of my very favorite guilty pleasures. I like it because I think it says a lot about human nature, even though it is I believe it's partially scripted, even though they say it's, you know, but it is, and they do admit, heavily edited. So they skew how you see the characters, and I just find it interesting for the interactions between the players and the justifications that people make in pursuit of $1 million. So, because that's my psychology background, I just find it fascinating. So that's all I have to say for today. I will be back tomorrow. Hopefully I will have finished Planetwalker and made a good clip through the Loch. I don't know that I'll be able to finish it by tomorrow because it's almost 500 pages. And based on the first 45 pages so far, I am not sucked in, even though it appears to be a, you know, full of thrills and dangers. I just haven't managed to get sucked into it yet. So we'll see if I can get further into it this evening and overnight into tomorrow. But I do hope to have gotten much closer to the ending of the Loch, and hope to have finished Planetwalker, which I'm finding very interesting. Thank you if you watched all the way through. I kept my rant to the end, and I did not talk about my neighbor at all. I hope you're having a wonderful week, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye!